I want to talk about how you guys decided to do Stargate and what the process has been like with this particular license, with working with MGM, and what the fan response has been like. Can you tell me?
The fan response has been great. It's been very, very satisfying. And and gratifying, satisfying and gratifying. MGM are very nice to work with. They're absolutely fine. I guess the a sort of bigger part of it behind the scenes is quite often what we do is above and beyond what the studio expects. So the models that we've made so far are actually based on the original CG assets which Mark Savala source for us,
Oh,
which
Mark
I
Savella
remember.
sourced them for you. Okay.
Yeah, so he actually gave them to us, so they're direct from the vendors. Um, and it was Joe Malozzi who introduced me to Mark, and so on and so on. So it's been a pleasure.
So these models, you're pulling these from CG source files that were used in the show. Someone has not doctored them. These are originals.
Pretty much. I mean, there's the big Stargate, the big Rars pyramid from the movie, that we had to recreate based on study of the prop because obviously it wasn't CG when it was originally made. But yeah, when it comes to the SG-1 Atlantis and Universe assets, those all came to us from Mark. So Mark got the vendor to send them direct to us, and we go through a process of converting them into a format that can be used by the factory to make the tooling. So there's a little bit of work is done to them, but they are fundamentally the models that were used to make them in the show.
Which is your favorite that you've released so far?
Well, you know what? It's a funny thing. It's always the last thing that you did.
I can
So,
understand that.
I mean the Rise Pyramid is extraordinary. I mean, I think it's only up on pre-order at the moment, and but I want to make it clear to people just how big it is. I mean, this thing it's big. I mean, it's it's square because well, it's a pyramid, obviously, but
It's
basically,
pyramidal in shape.
yes, it's a pyramidal shaped pyramid. Otherwise, but it's a really big piece. I mean, and you look at it and you go, "Wow, that's quite something." But it's also, about the size of an IKEA shelf, which I always think is important to people. That if you can put it on I figure most people have IKEA shelving, and that if you have something that will sit on an IKEA shelf, then you're much more likely to be able to accommodate it in your home.
I think that that's a great standard. You shouldn't expect the typical client to have to go out and buy furniture to suit your piece, unless you're getting one
I'm
of those QMX or whatever they are, the Starship replicas that are like 3 feet long that you only seem to see at Comic Con. But never actually anyone owning except for one or two. But yeah, it's they're very displayable in size. Is that what you look for in terms of the benchmark of okay, what size are we going to pick for something?
Yes, it's exactly that. It's what size will allow you to show something in plenty of detail so that you can get a really nice sense of it as an object. But also what size is practical for people to display. So that's one of the reasons we don't do things in scale with one another. So we make them the same size rather than the same scale. Because obviously, if we did the pyramid in scale with the Death Glider, it would be well, either the Death Glider would be very small, or the pyramid would be very, very big.
Right.
So obviously they're not exactly the same size, but although the Hatak, the SG-1 version, is the same size. So you want people to be able to display these things. You want them to be able to put them around their desk. I mean, God, you should see the stuff that's on my desk at the moment. It's a complete mess. Um, but yeah, that's the idea: is that they make nice display pieces that people can put around their computer or put on the shelf.
Absolutely. I love your vertical book stacking, by the way. The Ghostbusters would be proud. Um,
I have so many books I have to find, but it's stacked in every possible way.
the where do you fall in terms of miniaturizing and losing definition of things? Because that's
Um,
going to happen.
yes, I mean you open these models and they say that the factory come back to you say this model is 3 miles long. what do we, I mean, you need to be able to retain a worthwhile level of detail. So, I mean, one of the things that really it frustrates me about other people's models, I think all too often in the past, things have been made by people who are maybe very good at making models, but aren't familiar with the shows.
Right.
Don't have the kind of emotional attachment to the things that you or I would have.
Yep.
So when you look at something, you want it to kind of feel absolutely right. You want it to be. So I spend a lot of time on color, for example.
Oh.
The colors of the renders or the colors of the 3D model that you get are not exactly the same all the time. So if you are flying in the atmosphere of a sandy planet, you will look a different color than if you're flying in space or if you've got the reflection of the sun. Or frankly, visual effects artists will make something a little brighter or a little darker depending on the needs of the shot.
Lighting
So,
is everything that we are seeing, and we don't even realize it.
absolutely, everything is about lighting. So, I'm very careful that although we get these reference shots, I then do literally pour over all the episodes trying to get all the shots to make sure that it's like, okay, actually, it's it's 17 different shades of grey across these 4 episodes. But when I'm creating something, I want it to have the right, to feel like it does in the show, to have that sort of sense of authenticity. Um, and that's a judgment thing as much as
Mhm.
it's not a definitive thing because light changes all the time. Or you do very subtle things like you can paint you're making a model that's maybe 8 inches, 9 inches long, but it's something that in the world of the show is through 400 meters long. And what happens is that the shadows that are cast by something of that huge size are not cast by something of that small size.
Right.
So, but you can do these things where you can paint a very subtly darker shade of the same color that implies the shadow and implies a degree of depth that isn't actually there. So there are a lot of tricks you learn over the years of doing these things to try and make things feel satisfying.
Uh,
Um,
I know for a fact that there is one object in particular that is so translucent that it basically had 4 or 5 different paint layers to it. And I imagine that you were absolutely pulling your hair out trying to get it exactly right. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I'm not. Well, the most extreme example that I've ever come across is the original paint scheme of the Enterprise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Okay.
which has a pearlescent paint finish with 36 different shades of
That,
paint on it.
well, wow. Man, I'm glad to know that, though. That's fascinating. I'm actually referring to the Stargate models. The
Yeah,
puddle
no, I don't know
jumper,
which one. I have to. The puddle jump.
the
Yeah,
puddle
well, the
jumper,
puddle
the
jumper does
green
change.
is like there's green, there's brown, there's a little bit of gray, and it's four
Yeah,
or five different layers. And it's just like, what's the term for it? Stippled on or whatever?
stippled. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. I mean, that's the other thing that happens is that you have layers of wash and wear and sort of there are different techniques you can use. I mean, so that's a really good example. So the puddle jumper on the puddle jumper, okay, you have an additional level of complexity on the puddle jumper in that you have a full size prop and you have a CG asset. And if you watch the show carefully, they're clearly not the same.
that's correct.
Um,
And the jumper design evolves from season 1 to season 5.
even though they're the same. Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. So yeah, on the jumper, there's a big thing about, obviously it has those indented areas where, there was a lot of experimentation and back and forth to try and make sure that the level of shadow, or is it actually darker in the grooves, it came out with feeling satisfying. And then the other thing, of course, with the puddle jumper is you've got the CG asset and it's got the engine pods or engine weapon pods are open. Um, and you're like, oh, what do you see from the outside of the puddle jumper when the pod is open? And so you're literally going through every single episode trying to find, like, okay, where do you ever actually see between the pod and the interior.
Not really.
And also, no, you don't. But you
Yeah.
literally went through every episode trying
Right?
to check
Just to make sure.
that you don't see this, because somebody will pop up and say, season 3, episode 6, you could see this and you've got it wrong.
Actually, excuse me.
Yeah, but that, look, I mean, I'm enough of a fan as well to know that's how people look at things, and that's right. That's what they should be doing.
That's right.
But then you also get into, I mean, it's unfortunately the sample that's on my desk is, actually, no, it's not. It is, well, it's slightly broken. The weapons pod's loose on this one. So then you look at it and then you start sort of thinking, well, actually, how does the engine pod, if it's retracted, how does it go into the interior? And then you're looking at the episodes and sort of going, where's the engine pod? Where
is it going?
How wide is this? Because you can see how wide the cabin is.
Yeah.
And yet the rear section seems to be wider than it should be if the pods are in. I mean, you end up worrying about a lot of things.
They're doing sleight of hand.
Yes, of course they are. I mean, and actually they did a pretty good job. The set and the thing does match up, and they clearly did think about it. But you do, if you're doing the job properly, you do sit there and think, hang on a minute, how does this work?
Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. You can find the full live stream shows on our YouTube channel or visit dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. See you on the other side.